Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, it really feels like we're not just watching history unfold these days.
No, it feels like we're living right smack in the middle of it.
Exactly. Every headline, every single news alert, it just seems to carry this extraordinary weight. From conflicts escalating, reshaping alliances, to citizens rising up in protests across continents. And then there's that relentless creeping shadow of, well, our planet's changing climate. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
So our mission today is to try and cut through some of that relentless noise, give you a shortcut maybe to understanding the chaos, the courage, and just the sheer complexity of it all. Help you feel genuinely well-informed without, hopefully, the overwhelm.
And that's precisely what this deep dive is for. We've pulled together a pretty diverse stack of sources trying to understand not just what's happening, but why it matters. And crucially, how these things that seem separate, these global events, are actually interconnected. Because in a world just saturated with information, figuring out what's truly significant, well, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
We're here to help connect those dots, find those deeper insights for you.
Okay, let's dive in then. We really have to start with what has unequivocally dominated global attention. The Israel-Iran conflict.
The big one.
It got that name pretty fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
The 12-day war. And then President Donald Trump declared a ceasefire on June 23rd. Announced the conflict was effectively over.
Right.
And for a moment, you could almost feel the world holding its breath, then letting out this collective sigh of relief.
Yeah, but the sequence of events leading up to that declaration, that's where it gets interesting.
Sure.
According to sources like The Hindu, CNN, this resolution came just 2 days after some pretty significant U.S. airstrikes.
Oh, okay.
On June 21st, the U.S. hit what are seen as Iran's most critical nuclear facilities. We're talking Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan.
Key sites.
Exactly. These aren't just any locations. They're central to Iran's uranium enrichment, heavy water production. It's the heart of their program, really. And both Trump and Israel were quick to frame those strikes as a success, like definitively stopping Iran's nuclear development.
But, and this is where it always gets tricky in conflict, the narrative wasn't the same everywhere.
No, absolutely not.
Because over in Tehran, Iranian state media, they also confirmed the ceasefire. Well, okay, but they presented it as a massive victory for them.
Right, a victory narrative.
They claimed it was because of their, quote, successful missile retaliation attacks that showed off Iran's military strength. So right away, two totally different takes on the same ceasefire. How do you even start to figure out what's really happening when that narrative battle kicks off immediately?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because you've got the official silence from Israel's military, which is notable. It doesn't really back up either side strongly. And then the New York Times reported something pretty unsettling, that some strikes, even after the ceasefire was declared, they apparently continued.
Really? After the announcement?
That's the report, which makes you wonder about the nature of this ceasefire. Is it a genuine stop? Or is it more like a strategic pause, a temporary halt in a dynamic that's still very much alive?
And of course, social media just exploded. X, formerly Twitter.
Oh, yeah?
Some users immediately hailed it as this huge diplomatic win for Trump. But then you had others, like at Midas who were deeply skeptical, questioning the whole thing, calling it basically just a victory speech without a real victory.
Yeah, and to really get this current moment, you have to rewind just a bit to how it actually started.
Right, it didn't begin with the ceasefire.
No, it kicked off on June 13th. Israel launched a surprise attack directly hitting Iran's nuclear infrastructure. That was the spark. Iran's response was fast and it was significant. They didn't just hit Israeli cities. Crucially, they struck a U.S. military base in Qatar.
Hitting U.S. personnel.
Directly hitting American personnel. And that is what pulled the U.S. much deeper in, escalating American involvement into, well, full-on combat mode.
And boy, did that cause a political firestorm back home.
You bet.
Trump authorizing those strikes without getting Congress's approval first. Immediate comparisons to the 2003 Iraq invasion. Huge debate kicked off about executive power, Congress's role.
Yeah, the constitutional questions.
Exactly. And internationally. Alarm bells. The UN pleading for calm, de-escalation. Russia just outright condemned the U.S. actions, called them reckless, destabilizing for the whole region.
And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. The human cost, the economic consequences. They're already profound. It doesn't really matter who claims victory on that front.
What are we seeing there?
Well, Iranian reports confirmed at least 9 of their security officers killed in Yazd. 2 media workers died in Tehran. thousands more injured, civilians caught in the middle across both countries.
Awful.
But the ripple effect goes way beyond the immediate area. Iran has explicitly threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz.
Wow. That's huge, isn't it?
It's enormous. Think about it. 1/5, 20% of the entire world's oil passes through that narrow channel.
1/5.
If they close it, it's not just a regional problem. It would trigger massive global economic disruption. You'd likely see an unprecedented spike in oil prices, a complete rethinking of energy supply chains.
You're already seeing the effects.
We're already seeing countries like India actively trying to diversify their oil sources, basically bracing for that potential chokehold. Just the threat alone could reshape global energy markets for years.
So circling back to this ceasefire, what does it all add up to? Is it real peace or, like you said, just a pause?
It feels fragile.
Yeah. With both sides claiming victory, these unsettling reports of continued strikes, it feels less like a solid peace deal and more like a powder keg with a very shaky lid.
Ready to blow again.
It seems like the battle for the narrative is almost as important as the battle on the ground now.
It often is.
Okay, so moving from that geopolitical chessboard where leaders are making these huge decisions, let's shift focus. Let's turn to the streets, where a different kind of power is being asserted.
Yeah, the power of the people.
Exactly. People demanding change. All around the world, global protests are erupting. It's really a powerful statement, isn't it? We saw that photo series from the Deccan Herald just yesterday. Powerful images of ordinary people standing up, speaking out.
Yeah, we've seen some really vivid examples of this collective uprising lately. In London, you had massive crowds marching, demanding accountability from their government.
What were the specific issues there?
Well, the reasons seem a bit murky, kind of broad. Cost of living crises, maybe a lack of government transparency, but the visual message, unmistakable. It's a population that's just plain fed up. They want to be heard.
Fed up, okay.
And then in Tehran, it's been particularly explosive. Protesters absolutely furious over the U.S. and Israeli actions, but also maybe their own government's handling of it all.
Right.
They flooded the streets chanting anti-Western slogans. It really highlights that tension between the official victory narrative and the public's visible anger and maybe disillusionment.
And we shouldn't forget Kenya either. Back on June 12th, Nairobi, the capital, saw brutal clashes.
Against police violence.
Citizens protesting, escalating police violence, met with tear gas, batons. It was harsh.
Very harsh.
So there's a clear message emerging, isn't there? From London, Tehran, Nairobi. These very different places, people are done whispering.
Absolutely.
Whether it's about war or the economy or police brutality, the call for justice, for accountability, for fundamental change, it's undeniably loud.
The demand is clear.
Okay, let's take a moment here, maybe a deep breath, if you will, because we need to talk about a crisis that, even with its huge existential impact, just isn't consistently grabbing enough headlines.
Our environment.
Our environment, yeah. The crisis that isn't making enough noise, paradoxically.
It's quite alarming, actually. The World Meteorological Organization just confirmed it. 2024 was Asia's hottest year ever recorded.
Asia's hottest year ever.
Yeah.
Just think about the scale of that.
Exactly. And it's not just some abstract statistic, right? It translates directly into devastating impacts on people's lives, their livelihoods. We're seeing unprecedented heat waves like in Srinagar, India. Communities just struggling to cope.
What does that look like on the ground?
It means crops failing, leading to food insecurity.
Yeah.
It means power grids buckling under the extreme temperatures, causing blackouts, disrupting everything. And yet, despite these flashing red lights, climate change still rarely cracks the top 5 global headlines. It's pushed aside by more immediate conflicts or political dramas.
And if we connect this environmental stress to the immediate human cost, look at Gaza, that humanitarian catastrophe unfolding there.
It's heartbreaking.
The UN reports over 55,000 pregnant women are at extreme risk right now. They lack food, medicine, safe care. They and their unborn children are incredibly vulnerable.
Lives just hanging by a thread.
These aren't abstract numbers. These are mothers, babies, forgotten amidst conflict and resource scarcity. And you have to think, the climate crisis, making resources scarcer, causing displacement, it just quietly makes these situations worse.
It absolutely exacerbates them. And what's truly disheartening, maybe even shocking, is the global response to these soaring humanitarian needs.
What's happening with aid?
In 2024, global investment in humanitarian aid actually dropped. Dropped by a staggering 11%. It fell to just $1.5 trillion, which sounds like a lot, but is that really enough? For a planet that is literally and figuratively on fire with climate disasters and deepening human crises.
It forces you to ask some hard questions about our collective priorities, doesn't it?
It really does.
Okay. But amidst all this chaos, all these heavy headlines, we have to find some glimmers of hope. We need to.
We do.
So let's shift perspective again. Let's look for something a little lighter. Maybe things that remind us of human resilience, the persistence of life, that enduring spirit of connection.
And there are things to point to. It's fascinating, actually, looking at some positive political shifts, particularly in India.
Oh, yeah. What's happening there?
Well, the Aam Aadmi Party, they're known for their anti-corruption stance, focus on grassroots governance. They recently won significant victories in by-elections in Gujarat and Punjab.
Okay.
And the Congress Party picked up Nalambar. These wins taken together might suggest that voters are increasingly looking for, well, something different.
A shift away from the status quo?
Perhaps signaling a broader trend, maybe globally, where people are tired of traditional politics and are actively rewarding new approaches, new leadership. It shows the power of the citizen's voice, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's just the vibrant world of culture and entertainment. Proof that even when the world feels completely unrecognizable, creativity, community, they persist.
They really do.
We saw communities celebrating the actor Kevin's birthday, huge fan outpouring, and A.A. Asherakorn turned 19.
Right, alongside that Big Cat T-shirt 2025 festival in Thailand.
Which is a major culture and music event, right?
Yeah.
Draws huge crowds, reflects that vibrant youth energy in Southeast Asia.
It does. And have you heard about Pilot Remain the series?
I've seen it mentioned. It's getting big.
Yeah, gaining real traction, especially out of Singapore. It just shows how compelling emotional storytelling can connect with people across borders, even when times feel so tumultuous. Finding connection is still possible. And if you think about the bigger picture here, these aren't just like pleasant distractions from the tough news.
No, they feel more important than that.
They're powerful proof, I think, that even amidst the most challenging times, the human spirit finds ways to create, to connect, to celebrate, to shine. They remind us that life and joy and progress, they continue, often in the places we might least expect them. It's a vital counterpoint to the weight of everything else.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, it feels pretty clear we are living through a really unique turning point in history.
It does feel that way.
Just think about the range. War and peace, fire and celebration, collapse and resilience. It's all happening all at once. This dense tapestry of human experience. It's overwhelming, yes, but also profoundly significant.
And maybe that raises a final provocative thought for you listening right now. In a world this complex, changing this fast, with information just flooding us constantly, the ultimate challenge isn't just to stay informed. That's important, obviously, but maybe the real challenge is to actively stay awake, stay aware, and most importantly, and this is the key part, stay human.
Stay human. What does that mean in this context?
It means engaging with empathy, applying critical thinking to those conflicting narratives we talked about, finding the connections that let us truly understand the world, not just passively absorb facts. It's about holding on to our shared humanity amidst it all.
Absolutely. Well said. We really hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture, maybe some essential context, perhaps even some tools to continue your own reflections.
Keep asking questions.
Keep asking questions. Keep digging for those deeper insights, and keep seeking out that profound understanding. Thank you for diving in with us today.